Well, good evening, Oregon football fans, Oregon fans everywhere. Thanks for joining us. This is another happy hour with the Ducks presented by Pepsi. I hope everyone is enjoying their summer to the extent that you can, staying healthy, getting out of the house when you can, but also doing whatever you can to get us through so everybody can stay healthy as we look forward to the fall. Wear a mask whenever you possibly can. Help slow the spread of this thing. If you've seen the social media hashtag, face masks fall sports, but I'm all in on that because I sure want to watch Oregon athletics coming up in just what would be a few weeks now if we stay on schedule, stay on course. So hopefully everybody again is doing their part to keep us on that trajectory. And again, staying happy, staying healthy. Today we're talking football. Hopefully only a few weeks out from the start of preseason camp for the Oregon football team and for teams around the country. And we're talking to Andy Avalos, defensive coordinator for the Oregon Ducks. Coach Avalos, thanks for joining us. Thanks for giving us some of your time. Welcome in. How you been holding up?
Been doing fairly well. Rob, first off, thanks for having me on. It's exciting to be able to jump on and hang out here. We've been through a unique year, and so there's been a lot of challenges thus far, but we're coming together well, and just really happy to have the players back here in the last couple of weeks and getting them back around each other. You can tell they're very happy to be around each other. The smiles on their faces. 2.5 months away from each other. It was a long time. You never expect to not see your fellow teammates for that long, so they're pretty excited to see each other.
I got to say, you got the hair in place. You don't have any kind of quarantine beard going on. How'd you hold up these last few months?
I'm about 3 weeks past all that. So, for a while there it was no haircuts, no shaves. Had to excuse ourselves in front of the recruits on the Zoom meetings. It's hard to find a barbershop when none are open. So it was quarantine cuts at the house. But obviously now as we start to open up, like you were mentioning in the opening segment here, is, we got to do a great job making sure that we handle the protocol, wearing our mask and staying safe in and throughout the community so that we can continue to progress.
Yeah, I grow the world's patchiest beard, and plus that's where all the gray hairs pop out. So I got to make sure I stay clean shaven for no other reason than to not show my age.
Patchy would be better than what you would call mine because it is very good. I got this baby face, so I'm fortunate. I only got to shave maybe twice a week. So patchy would be good for me.
I would milk a baby face for as long as I could. That's for sure. You mentioned guys being back around, and that's got to be really invigorating for you too after going through the whole spring, doing meetings virtually. Once spring was cut short, you guys did get in four practices, but just how different is it just having guys around? Obviously they're doing voluntary workouts and you're still pretty limited in some of the interactions you can have and in terms of oversight and things like that, but just how invigorating is it to have guys back around and just be able to see some more people face to face?
Yeah, there's no question. We as coaches, we're not having a ton of interaction in terms of the game in itself right now with them. The strength and conditioning staff, they're full hands-on right now. Our medical staff, our training staff, in terms of handling the protocol every day when they show up and making to ensure that we're practicing and preparing safely, to keep people healthy and to do our part in order to push this season forward. And so for us as coaches, it's been more supporting our guys. There's a lot of things going on in this world right now that are bigger than football. And so we're trying to be there for our guys, off the field more so than on the field, aside from our strength coaches right now. But it's just been awesome to have them back.
Yeah, as you refer to, I mean, a lot of different conversations on a lot of different subjects going on around the country right now, and I'm sure it's no different for your guys. And on your side of the ball, guys like Jordan Scott, Javon Holland, Verone McKinley have been leading voices on social media in terms of some of the social justice issues that we're really having to come to terms with as a country right now. What's been your perspective of watching those guys kind of take a voice and try to be agents of change in this social justice movement?
They're natural leaders. They're great young men. They got great hearts. They're very intelligent. And number one for us as a whole program to be able to listen, to have open forums, different open forums, coaches with players, players with players, open forums throughout the conference. What we're trying to do is to do a better job of just simply sitting and listening so that we can help understand these things that need to change and what people are going through. And we're trying to help the student athletes and providing avenues so that they can make a change and we can help them make a change wherever, that they feel and see necessary. And obviously as us as staff, we want equality for all. There's a lot of things in this world that need to change, and we're trying to do the best we can in the immediate around us to make changes in our community for the better. And through that, it will spread. And so very proud of our guys and the things that they have done already, and the direction they're going, and where there's a lot of frustration, understandably, but they've done an unbelievable job of turning it into positive energy to make change. And that's what we're proud of our guys and the things they're doing and how they're helping make, our community and eventually the world a better place.
Yeah, I think proud is a good word. I've been really proud too. I mean, I feel like I've learned a lot from some of your players too, just about, their perspective on how they view the world, how they interact with this community. And I think, it's an area for growth for all of us. And the more conversations that can happen, the better. So I know you guys have been involved in that, and your guys have been involved in some of the athletic department conversations we've had in terms of education. Meetings like that are still all virtual right now, just for the sake of this pandemic and keeping everybody safe and healthy and not letting anything spread. How do you feel like your guys handled all that through the spring? Were you able to do the learning that you wanted to do in that setting that you would count on being able to do through the spring?
Yes, we've been gauging where they're at here of late. We've taken a couple weeks off. Again, there's just been a lot of other things that we've been applying our attention to that were much more important. So we've taken a few weeks off here from the X's and O's of football in itself. And in this particular week, we've kind of started to gauge our guys on how they feel, where they're at in terms of the football stuff, so that, we're going to pick up and get going again here pretty soon. But overall, I think that, the plan coach put together and the Zoom meetings and the teaching progression in which we went through the course of those 2 months, really April and May, we feel like we've improved our football intelligence, but there's nothing like just going out there and doing it either. So we need to get plenty of those physical reps in. And obviously we're going to have to be very strategic, on how we do that in terms of spacing ourselves out on the field, spacing ourselves out as a team. And so there's a lot of things that we got to work through, not just as the X and O's, but there's a lot of other things. But we're excited. Our players, you should see Coach Feld and the rest of the strength staff, after the workouts, they've been very pleased about what our players have done. And more importantly, their spirits and where they're at mentally right now is the most important thing that we're focusing on as coaches. The physical part will always come, in due time and all that stuff. But the mental part and where our players are at and where their spirits are right now is very exciting.
That's great to hear. I personally miss being around the guys. That's for sure. I can't wait for that first time out on the practice field. Obviously, in your first year as a coordinator, guys really took to your system, and credit to the teaching from you and the staff, and credit to the guys for picking up on it. But it is still just 1 year in a system. And so I wonder, as you transitioned into this year, how much more were you going to try to do? How much was it just about reinforcing some of those concepts? And has this pandemic issue changed how much you feel like you can put on guys' plates for 2020?
Yes, no doubt. I mean, number one, we want to be great at our DNA. With the things that we're going to major in, we need to be great at. And we have an experienced group. Needless to say, you can never assume that they're automatically going to be great. So we've had a long time off. We've had 4 practices since January 1st. So there's a lot of time missed. Our guys are very intelligent. They understand what the process looks like now, which is where we've made tremendous strides. Now, being consistent through the day-to-day prep process is where we hope to make the biggest jump. And with that, we'll be able to tell how much more can we do. Are there certain things that are must that we must get in and that we will do differently? Yes, there are, but there's a whole list of those things. Now, there's a top part of the list that are must. The rest of the list on how the whole process goes here in the next month and a half will tell us how much more we can actually add on.
There was so much to like, and there was so much that was fun about watching your group, and the turnovers created and the points created by that, and just the disruption in terms of sacks and things like that. But you're paid to be critical. What were your biggest critiques of last year's effort, and what were some things that stuck with you as you did film review of last year? Like, man, we just weren't good in that area, or we got to be better in that area. For all the things that did go well.
It's just the consistency within it. We're talking. We made tremendous strides through the course of the year, and luckily, obviously, we finished on a very high note. The guys really had a great understanding of every game week has a new life of its own. That's the simplest way I can put it. Not 1 week, yes, you got a little momentum from 1 week to the next and all that, but that can be gone in a split second. So every week has a life of its own. So veteran groups like this, we've got to learn to be consistent week to week with how we prep and what we do, and really that in itself will handle the things that we need to improve on. There's always certain areas. There's certain third down markers, the medium window that we want to be better at. Third and short, we can stand to be better there as well. So there's all these little pieces of the game that we can improve on, that we've put tremendous work into already. Now we just need to bank more reps, obviously given the circumstance that we haven't got to get those reps. But what will allow us to bank better reps and in turn in the season be able to be better on the field is the consistency of which we operate. So that's a huge part of it.
As you mentioned, there was only 4 spring practices in which to try to get some of that work done and try to build on that consistency and establish it. Coach Cristobal sounded really, really pleased just in the feedback that he provided on in terms of your defense and how it looked in those 4 practices, and said it seemed like a unit that, kind of to paraphrase, hit the ground running and was looking like it was ready to take another step. Just what was your perception of how things played out during the work you did get in March?
Well, I'll tell you, even before we got into spring ball, even before spring practice number 1, you can see it, you can feel it when we're out there. Once we came off the road recruiting and we were able to be on the field leading up to the training with the players, they were different. Their mentality in a great way, in the growth of what we did was awesome, but we know we can do more. We know we can be better, but it's going to take this type of work. It's going to take us holding each other accountable. The veterans, the guys that have come back, the Jordan Scotts, the Thomas Grants, the Demos, Javon Holland, all of them, they look different. The way they were pushing themselves, the way they were training, the way they were moving, and in turn, leading into that first practice of spring ball, it was much different, obviously, than even where we were in fall camp last year, and very much so leading into, the bowl prep practices. So the biggest challenge was to, in here and there, is to kind of find out where we're at now, because without, it's not realistic to expect us to pick right up where we left off on practice number 4, practice number 1, but we're competitors. Our guys are competitors. We want to be as close as we can to that. So that's going to take a lot of, tremendous work here in the next month or so.
I think externally, expectations are that those next steps are going to happen. I can't really recall a level of buzz for an Oregon defense, maybe since the '94 team and the Gang Green group that helped lead that team to the Rose Bowl, and it was such a breakthrough year for the program. And since then, obviously, everybody knows the identity of this program has been a lot on the offense. So what's it been like for you to see your group get that kind of attention? I'm sure you don't want guys to get complacent. You don't want guys to get too ahead of themselves, but there has to be some pride too in seeing that when you see that yellow O, people are identifying it now with tough, hard-nosed defense and not just explosive offense.
There's no question. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to have, to be able to have a group constructed the way we do right now, not only on the defense, but the offense. And obviously we all come together on special teams to make the whole team, the 3 phases. But, I think one of the biggest things that we all have to keep in perspective is all those blessings and all those pats on the backs can go away really, really fast. And so while it is nice, we can appreciate, we can celebrate what we do and how we do it. But the bottom line is that we need to stay focused on the task at hand. And that's the challenge of it. That's what the great teams can do, is stay focused on the task at hand. Because, sometimes adversity hits pretty hard, when things are going well. Adversity hits really hard when things are going well. When things go bad, it's a slap in the face and it right away. Boom. It. But sometimes little cracks here and there, little things here and there start to pop up when things are going well, or you're supposed to be a veteran group. And what we want to try to do is minimize as much of that as possible, by focusing on our standard and who we are, and not just on the football side, but who we're becoming as people. and how we're growing as leaders, because soon enough here we're going to be in the real world. And that's what's important, is building those guys and building ourselves as coaches. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I can't underestimate how much we learn from these young men, as well every day. And so we're all, it's a great group, both sides of the ball. Iron sharpens iron. The offense, in those practices too, in those first 4 practices, made tremendous strides. And you can see what, Coach Moorhead's vision and what he's doing. And you can see the confidence that he's instilling in the offensive side of the ball. So that is very exciting as well.
Let's talk a little personnel and up front. You get to build around a couple of veterans and Jordan Scott, who you mentioned, and Austin Faliu. Kayvon Thibodeau is getting a ton of buzz right now, as a potential preseason All-America type guy. What's the potential for that group? What do you foresee potentially from Kayvon in his second year now that he's got a year under his belt? There's some exciting young guys behind them too. We saw some flashes from Brandon Dorless, but I think guys like Christian and Keon that could provide some depth up front that fans didn't get to see much of last year. But those big bodies, I'll tell you what, walking out to the practice field sure was impressive and looked different than freshman defensive linemen have traditionally looked around here over the years. So just what's your thought about the group up front?
Well, first off, I mean, obviously, wow, in a year's time, what a change physically, their bodies, how they play the game is on a whole nother level. We're fortunate. Yes, you mentioned the depth part. You mentioned some of the key contributors coming back in Austin, Jordan. Our defense starts in the interior inside there. If we can't win at the point of attack right over the center, we're going to struggle. So those guys, it's an every down fight. Their job, doesn't get a lot of credit a lot of times. Maybe the stats aren't there, but the underlying real value of what they do for this program is unbelievable. And to have 2 veterans coming back, we're very fortunate, very excited about their growth and their vision mentally of where they're at. Some of these young men, they have the opportunity to go off to the NFL. Some of them decide to come back for their senior years and really obviously to continue to develop. And one of the biggest pieces when you make that decision is to come back, is to develop mentally and grow as a person, to get yourself in an even better situation to handle what's next while focusing on what's now. And that's always the key. And the way like I said, the way our guys train leading up to spring ball and the way they've been since, not only the ones that, decided to come back for their senior year, but even all the other returners, it's been simply remarkable. And so up front wise, Kayvon is getting a lot of preseason attention. He finished the year unbelievable, deservedly so. Going back through cut-ups and stuff, even in the last couple of days, refreshing myself and getting myself ready, for what's coming up. It's pretty remarkable the amount of disruption he was able to cause, as well as other guys that we do have returning. Austin is very disruptive. Jordan is unbelievable in the run game, and I'll tell you what, the offseason Jordan has had, he's going to be a 3-down player, first, second, third down, everywhere in between. He can with the transformations he's made to his body and his ability to move and things like that. So we're excited about the front. Obviously, we got losing Troy Dye is a big piece of our leadership and our production. He's been a huge part of this program. Isaac Slade is a guy that played tremendous for us last year that is going to anchor that core and help lead now. It's his turn to step up and be the man, within that unit to help lead and help Coach Ken Wilson with that group. And obviously we got some returners that got playing time last year with Samson, and MJ and Drew and some other guys in there. And then we got some young guys that are going to come in and compete as well, with Noah and Justin Flo and Jackson LeDuc. And so it's exciting. We got guys that are going to be junior seniors. We got guys that are going to be freshmen and everywhere in between. And let's bring everybody together because we need the depth. We need it. That's going to be extremely important.
I think between Kayvon and Popo, I'm not sure. It hasn't struck me as much to watch 2 players that got so much better over the course of an individual season. I guess just talk about in terms of player development in terms of the season and how it is that guys were able to just keep getting better. And obviously there are 2 younger guys who were playing a little bit more, and that experience helps. But what are keys for guys like that to just keep getting better and better? Because as you say, every week's a different week and every opponent is different. And so to be on a consistent upward trajectory, for those two specifically was really impressive. But throughout the team, I'm sure you saw other examples. Just what all makes that possible?
Well, I'll tell you specifically, the week that the light went for Popo was Stanford. Unbelievable game. We're playing a pro style offense. It's going to line up traditional, old school, use some fullbacks, get some multiple tight ends in there and just come right at you. And Popo did an unbelievable job. The light came on, and you can see it in practice that week. It was different. It was different for him. In the game he had, we celebrated a few of his, plays that Sunday after that game. And specifically, this is the player you can be, and you can be the same type of young man in terms of your impact that you have on a program, you have on a business later on in life. This is what you need to experience and feel good about. And is it tremendous hard work, like you just said? Every week it is, but it's well worth it. And so when you get guys to understand that it is extremely hard to be consistent and be consistently good, but what's the benefit? What's the benefit of doing that and learning how to do that? And I think it was very much the same with Kayvon and his transformation from being an elite high school player into having a great freshman year. There was a huge jump on the mental side of it. He's extremely smart. And so teaching him how to use that in the right way and how to apply it to the things that were going to make him successful. And you know how it is. Once again, you get to have a good game. You get a little bit of that success. And so like, okay, what did I do last week to get that done? And how can I do it better so I can do it even better next week? That's always the objective. How can we do it better? Do it again. Did you like that? Did you like how good that felt to make that play and hear Otson go crazy? There's not a better feeling. There's not a better feeling than that. So is the work worth it during the week? Okay, let's go. This is what we got to do. And guys just learning that. The Javon Hollands, the guys that know how to do those things, how to prepare, it's well worth it. And so just teaching guys that stuff, the stuff that never gets seen on the practice field. We're not even talking about the practice field yet. So learning how to prepare is always a big deal for the young guys.
There's such a chicken and the egg situation where once you have some success, as you mentioned with Popo, it's oh, okay, that's what it looks like. And, I have affirmed for myself that I can do that. So now I can push myself to be that guy. But until you have that success, you got to kind of dangle the carrot out there and say, hey, this is what you can be. And different guys come to that at such different time frames. There's no question. It's a time frame is different for everybody. But once you have that real confidence and know what your capabilities are, and you know what the underlying factors are to reach your capabilities day in and day out, and that makes you even more confident. And so that's what we're trying to instill in our guys. And, obviously our young guys that come into this program, you mentioned player development. Number one, we're talking about physical development, but even mental development and creating the culture starts with the mentality, right? And so if we don't have the right mentality, we don't have the right culture. So if we don't have the right confidence, if we don't do things the right way, if we're not early, if we're not early, we're not on time. If we don't apply the right mental to our game on the field, we don't have the right culture. And so there's a lot of things that start mentally that contribute to our physical abilities. And so teaching our young guys when they come in the program, and obviously the physical development they receive in the strength and conditioning room is unbelievable with Coach Feld and their staff, and how we all work together for the betterment of the athlete and specifically to their position to develop them. I think you've seen it on both sides of the ball, different positions. You've seen it in the offensive line position, you see it on the edge position, the D-line position, you see it at the linebacker position, you see it in the secondary with Mikael Wright, so it's all over the board, wide receiver, and so that's what we're really proud of, and we got to keep that going. And the guys that experience those positive effects and the bulb goes on, they got to help us, and they got to help their brothers experience that same thing as well. Talk about mentality. One guy who seems to have it is Drew Mathis, who you mentioned, and not having Troy Dye out on the practice field is just going to be a weird thing. And I think it's going to be hard for all of us to get used to. And once home games come back, listening to Shout before the fourth quarter and not having him out there that's going to take some getting used to too. But Drew Mathis, that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, absolutely. That role, you know what I'm saying? He's going to handle that role as a whole nother. A lot of pressure. But Drew Mathis just got the athletic department's award, the Jake Well Award, for having the highest GPA of any graduating senior this past year, and he got his diploma. And a bunch of other guys, Jordan Scott, Austin Falliou, Thomas Graham, all with their diplomas are on track. Brady Breeze, I know, among those guys too. So kudos to all those guys. But Drew Mathis specifically, just do you see his? He's obviously got a bunch of book smarts. Do you see that translate in terms of football IQ as well? He was able to step in when Troy was unavailable at times in the middle part of last year, so it seemed to indicate that. But does that mentality show for Drew in football IQ?
There's no question. You can see how important it is to him, how important it has been to him since he's gotten here. We got here about the same time. And this is Drew's second chance. He went to a 4-year school, then back to a junior college, and now this is his second chance. And his growth. I don't know what he looked like before, but where he is at right now in his life and his maturity and how important things are to him is remarkable. I mean, he's always dialed in. He's always wanting to learn. His care factor is really, really high. And when a guy's care factor are high about how they're doing, what they're doing, so that they can have, an output that is worthy of their standard, then that's a good start for young men. And we're excited about what Drew's doing right now, what Drew's going to continue to do. So looking forward to big things from Drew.
Yeah, he and I were both at a recruiting dinner up in Salem last year, and he made a room full of fans that day. He wowed them all. So there was a line of fans waiting to get selfies with him afterwards. So I was really, really impressed with him that day. When you're talking about the front, you haven't mentioned the edge guys yet. And so I wonder if you can just talk about how you feel about that group. And if you could too, since you work with some of those guys, break down for fans what a practice is like for you, and just how you try to divide up your attention, but going from warm-ups and then to position drills, and then when you get into larger groups like 3-on-2 and 7-on-7, and then to full 11-on-11. Talk about the edge guys too, and then kind of how they fit into the way you prioritize your time at practice.
So that's probably the trickiest question of all, because we have 4 practices this whole year. I'm like, hold on, it's been a while. Let me run this back in my mind real quick. No, as a coordinator and obviously as a position coach, it takes a tremendous amount of planning to run a practice and to get, what we want to get out of the practice and what we need to get. And so organization is huge, even leading up to practice. But, my primary position group is the edge players. Coach Joe and I, we coach the front together. We handle those front guys a lot. That's the beautiful thing about it. There's no egos. Hey, coach, can you help me with this? These guys, or take the D tackles and work certain things with them. And we work circuits and we communicate the same language. And so we're able to put our players through circuits. And, we got a new GA up front this year with us that came over from Boise State that had played in defenses and played in this defense specifically, this scheme. And so he gets it. He understands it in the fall in those practices, in the spring in those practices. He was a tremendous help. So we're able to coach our fronts with 3 different guys and be able to have a better impact. And when you talk about development, that's a huge part. But more specifically, my job is primarily responsible for the edge guys, so the DNs, Kayvon Thibodeau's on the edge, the boundary side edge players, the studs, the stand-up hybrid players. We want to be a defense that has the ability to do multiple things on the edges. To set edges in the run game is a must. To pass rush is a must. But then also to be able to drop up out of there and do some of those things as well, is something that makes the defense. So being able to it takes, in this defense, it takes 3 guys, easily. 2 is a must that can work together. And so I love working with Coach Joe, up front with that group. And so he primarily handles, the D tackles, the noses, and the ends that do play end in the bigger packages. So it's a fun time. When it comes to individual, we're out there sweating. We're getting in there with the players and getting our work in too. But pre-practice is always about the mental aspect, the organization within the defense, how we're going to see and react to certain things as individuals, as a defense, and making sure so that we can get quality reps in practice. After pre-practice, it's on. I mean, it's turned up the whole time. We're moving. individually, specifically, we're focusing on the front and the edge players. Then, as you know, we always move into individual group drills, O-line versus D-line, wide receivers versus DBs and such on. And the majority of the time when it comes to the run game stuff, I spend with the front guys. Coach Joe and I making sure that we're on point, because if we ain't stopping the run, we don't have a shot. So spend a lot of time down there, a little bit of time, in and around the one-on-one pass rush stuff. But when they go more to group rush, I usually go down and hang it and watch the 7-on-7. I spend a lot of time down on the 7-on-7 and making sure that, my job, we divide a bunch of different responsibilities up on defense, actually 5 of them. And my job is communication and eye control, and making sure that I'm effectively always evaluating how our communication and our eye control is, finding different ways to get better at it. Coach Joe's job is block destruction, how we take on blocks, how we escape blocks. Coach Ken Wilson's job is pursuit. How we pursue to the ball is everything. It's our mentality. It's our identity. And you see the guys having fun with that now anymore. Guys hear pursuit, it's not like, conditioning. That's not what it is anymore. That's who we are. That's our mentality. That's how we operate. And then Coach Keith Hayward, his job is tackling, for the defense and for the team, special teams, all involved in organizing that stuff. And then Coach Rod Chance is responsible for takeaways and how we coordinate. So each guy coordinates all that stuff. So that being said, throughout practice, specifically, I move around a lot and to oversee the communication, overall communication of the defense. And if we're seeing the right things, if we're disciplined with our eyes, because we've got talented players, intelligent players. But if they're not seeing the right things, they're going to be in the wrong place. So that's a huge part of it.
What helps to have veterans?
Or as I can give it to
that
you.
Was
I could
that was
talk
awesome.
all day about practice.
That was awesome, and I'm sure our fans learned a ton. I learned a ton, and I'm there every day. So
when we get into team periods, I'm just trying not to get ran over or get mad at me because I'm in the mix too much. Coach Joe and I are pursuing to the ball with the players. We're trying to beat players to the ball. Again, they talk about it all the time. Come with us, meaning pursue with us, run. So we're running. If anything we ask our players to do, we expect of ourselves. And so there's certain of us that don't have game day operation necessarily. I'm up in the box, so I don't have to signal and do all the other stuff. So I'm in there playing with and running the ball. Coach Joe does it too with some other, as well as other coaches, so it's fun.
Yeah, Coach Joe definitely looks like he would like to be jumping in there, and he doesn't need any pads or anything. Half the practices, he looks like he's ready to go. He wishes he had.
He's a little bigger now. He can handle himself. I'm just trying not to get ran with all those guys out there. So.
Well, again, when you talk about communication, when you talk about eye discipline, it helps, I'm sure, to have veteran guys. And on the back end, you've got so many veterans. And, I think me and everyone else is really intrigued to see just how you take advantage of all that, talent and different kinds of body types, different guys, between, obviously having Thomas and Diamador back at corner, a ton of experience, but Mikael Wright shows so much potential as a freshman. And then you move towards the back end with Javon and Nick Pickett and Brady Breeze, that played a ton of football, Verone McKinley, a guy who showed some flashes last year and looking to take the next step. But you've got more new faces you're adding to the mix too. So just, is there kind of a mad scientist element to that where you can say, hey, I've got all these guys who kind of know what they're doing, so I can devise some different things and put more on their plate to really take advantage of all that?
Yeah, there's no question. There's no doubt about it. It's exciting. It's exciting too, because they deserve, we tell all the time, we're going to work. We'll work around the clock to, if a guy deserves a role in, there's multiple, you can only have 11 on the field, but we'll find a role for people. We'll find it where it's something that they're really good at doing. And, we'll create certain things. We'll create certain things for guys like that. And is it going to be every single game? No, because you don't play the same offense every single game. But what we are going to do is we're going to have the freshest secondary, because we got a lot of depth. We got a lot of depth of guys that understand, know how to play, know what it takes, know what it is to prepare. Okay, and the biggest challenge is for them is to always be on point, because every day it's going to be competition, and they're all great friends. That's the best thing about it, is they help each other, they make each other better, and they're going to work together, to try to create the best secondary in the nation. And the way those guys worked, in spring ball, and the way they have worked. Javon Holland is, his spring ball practices, the 4 we got, it was different. It was different. I mean, he was every single day out there. He was there was a noticeable difference in his improvement from last year, which says a lot because he had a tremendous year last year. But we're excited about all those guys. Our safety position, obviously we got, we're in a two deep situation where we feel really, really comfortable. So how do we get more guys on the field with a corner position? We got 3 corners that we feel really, really, really good about. So how do we get all these guys on the field? There will be some new stuff this year that we can't necessarily talk about, right?
Love it.
But the guys are certainly fired up about it and excited about it. And, in due time, only time will tell, again, how much we can do given the circumstances and the things that we must be good at before we start expanding too much. Because, you do a lot and be good at nothing. Nobody wants that. So our secondary, we're really fired up about those guys and what they're doing. And again, the way they have competed this offseason with themselves to better themselves has been remarkable.
I think we saw late last year, with playing Breeze and Pickett together, the staff's ability to say, hey, here's a couple guys who are both well suited to go against a Utah or against a Wisconsin. Let's just use them together and not be tied to, set positions for guys. But then also the two of them to be guys who'd been kind of competing for reps to then show that they can work together too and both be guys who play well together. I would assume, it's always a challenge to kind of maintain that mentality and have that right mix of camaraderie and competition and pushing each other while also working together. But you got to like the pieces, obviously.
To your point, it was a big time play on the field. Big time play on the field in the Rose Bowl, and I'll talk about it here in a second. But the most remarkable thing about that play is what happened on the sideline. And you can see the play unfold, and you can see our whole sideline, coaches, players, all. And it was the fly sweep. Brady Breeze caused a turnover. Bryson Young recovers the fumble late in the game there. Gives us a takeaway. We're able to score and go up, and we hold them off, and we win the Rose Bowl. My favorite part about that play, obviously, yes, we got a takeaway. We recovered, great field position, all that. But my favorite play about that play is the sideline. There's safeties on the sideline, Nick Pickett being one of them, who is standing back there watching the formation, and he's pointing things out as if he's in the game, standing on the sideline doing his communication. And yep, he pointed it out. It's going to be fly sweep from the field. And you can see it on film, him pointing the fly sweepers coming to the boundary. Guys on the field communicated, get ourselves adjusted. Brady sees it, comes down, fills, hits the guy, and Nick is jumping up on the sideline. His vertical jump was like 40 inches off the ground at that point. But to see the celebration, the camaraderie, and guys that play the same position, but Nick can play because he's paying attention, and we're playing the big personnel teams, and he's a run, stop, and safety. We can put both of those guys in the game at the same time now because Nick's on point. He can play the other safety, and so that's where I say if guys are on point and they know multiple positions, we can use guys to their strengths, and when they deserve to be in the game, when they've handled the process right and conducted themselves and, the way Nick has. And so that part of last season, we shared that with the defense because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take humility. It's going to take a lot of humility to be great this year because as much as confidence and all the hype, and all the praise and all that, humility is more important. And that's what it's going to take to be great.
Well, I just got chills when you're breaking that down. So I excited to go back and watch that game and watch that play now and watch the sideline. And thanks a ton for breaking all that down for us, Coach Avalos. This has been an awesome and informative, enlightening half hour, 40 minutes, whatever it was. Thanks for giving us some of your time, and best of luck as you guys move forward here through these ensuing weeks and as camp gets closer and closer.
Rob, I appreciate it. Everyone stay safe out there. Happy 4th of July. And Sko Ducks.
Sko Ducks is right. Yeah. Thanks again to Coach Avalos, and thanks to all you for tuning in. I keep repeating myself, but on a weekly basis, this is just such a fun way to connect with all you Oregon fans out there and talk some athletics. And again, like I've said before, for those of you who want kind of a distraction from what's going on in the world, we could be that, but we also want to acknowledge what's going on in the world too, and be a voice there too. So again, as Coach said, have a great long weekend. Everybody stay safe. Have fun, wear a mask when you can, and we'll see you again for another happy hour with Ducks presented by Pepsi Thanks again to Scott LeBounty on the back end for doing all the production. And we'll see you next time.